Many years ago, the Indiana State Fairgrounds Coliseum was known for fun events and happy memories. But a particular Halloween night in 1963 changed everything. A sudden and unexpected explosion transformed the joyful atmosphere into a scene of terror, causing the tragic deaths of 74 innocent people and leaving over 400 others seriously injured. Today, we'll rewind to that fateful Halloween night that marked the history of the Coliseum forever. The story starts on Halloween night in 1963. Usually, Halloween is filled with costumes, candies, and fun. The city was full of decorations and kids were trick-or-treating, having a great time. However, at the Indiana State Fairgrounds, a special event called Holiday on Ice was happening. This was a famous ice skating show that had been around for over 75 years and had fans all around the world. People loved the show for its fancy ice skating, beautiful outfits, and amazing tricks. It was really popular and everyone was talking about it. This ice skating show was a big part of a special event at the Indiana State Fairgrounds Coliseum called Shriners Night. The event was planned to last 11 days, and the first night alone had over 4,000 people coming to watch. There were families with kids, excited to see the show, couples holding hands, and groups of friends all together. They were all waiting for a night full of fancy outfits, cool stunts, and great music. As it was getting close to 11 p.m., everyone was excited for the grand finale of the show, a big and colorful performance called Mardi Gras. But what they didn't know was that something very different was about to happen. There was a rusty propane tank in a busy food area that people didn't notice. This tank was old and not working properly, so it started to leak gas. The gas filled the room, but no one could see it. It was very dangerous. At the same time, the gas was moving towards an electric popcorn machine. This was about to cause a really bad accident that would change Indianapolis forever. While all this was happening, the audience was enjoying the show. The ice skaters were getting ready for a big move, and everyone was cheering loudly. But without knowing it, they were also getting closer to a very scary event. And then, something awful happened. The sneaky gas from the old propane tank found its way to a popcorn machine in the snack area. What happened next was a gigantic bang that caught everyone off guard. In an instant, the Coliseum was filled with a bright orange light. A huge boom shook the building, a result of the unnoticed gas meeting the popcorn machine's sparks. The explosion was so mighty that it tore through the inside of the building.
Without any warning of any kind, all of a sudden there was a terrific explosion and a gas flame about 50 feet high roared into the air, and the bodies were laying all over the arena.
Just moments before, the audience was enjoying the ice show, but now they found themselves in a scary situation. The explosion was so intense that it sent a wall of fire as high as a 4-story building up from the south side seats. People and chairs were tossed into the air like they were made of paper. When they landed, it was on the hard, cold ice of the rink. It was a shocking change from the exciting show they were watching just moments ago. Then, something even scarier happened. Big pieces of concrete started to fall from the ceiling, adding to the already terrible situation. Some of the people in the audience found themselves stuck under these heavy pieces, right in the place they had come to have a good time. In a flash, many people lost their lives. 54 people didn't make it, and almost 400 others were hurt. It was an incredibly sad moment. But even in this horrible situation, people showed how brave and kind they can be. Some people who were lucky enough to not get hurt in the explosion jumped into action. With brave hearts, they helped pull others out from the wreckage and tried to calm down those who were in shock. Their quick thinking and unselfish actions surely saved a lot of lives that night. Suddenly, the fairgrounds, which was usually a place for fun exhibits and rides, turned into an emergency rescue site. Police, firefighters, and rescue vehicles filled the place, making it look more like a scene from a battle than a place of fun. A nearby barn, usually home to cattle, was changed into a quick hospital to help the injured. Inside the Coliseum, people had to start the sad job of figuring out who had passed away. The bodies were carefully laid out on the ice rink and covered with blankets. Families who were there to find their loved ones had to sign in at the front office before they could go into the Coliseum. This sad job was done with as much respect as possible considering the terrible situation. The phone at the local Red Cross was ringing off the hook. All sorts of people were calling to either offer help, give blood, or find out about their loved ones. The Red Cross worked non-stop to provide help during this horrible disaster. Sadly, reports later confirmed that another 20 people, who were really badly hurt, didn't make it because of their injuries. Out of the mess and panic, two unrelated reporters named Bill Roberts and Richard R. Roberts found themselves in the middle of this terrible disaster. Bill Roberts, who worked for the Indianapolis News, was there that night, not as a reporter, but as someone there to watch the show with his wife. But after the big blast, he stepped into his professional role, documenting the horrific event in real time. He later wrote, "For a few moments no one yelled out, then came the screams and cries of pain." His scary narrative gave a clear picture of the chaos that happened. People ran for the exits, the orchestra playing amidst the chaos, and the heart-wrenching sight of a little girl wearing a blue coat covered in blood, looking for her dad, really hit him hard. Yet the horror wasn't just happening inside the Coliseum walls. Outside the Coliseum, the picture wasn't any better. People with severe injuries were spread out everywhere, waiting for medical help. A man had a swollen eye and was missing a part of his leg. The fairgrounds, which normally would be filled with fun and games, looked more like a war zone, filled with police cars and ambulances. Another reporter, Richard R. Roberts from the Indianapolis Star, compared the scene to a bad dream. "This is the worst thing I've seen since I was in World War II," he said. His descriptions of a red shoe on the ice, a puddle of blood close by, and a man covered with a gray blanket who wasn't alive anymore gave his readers a picture they couldn't forget. For the families and friends of the people who got hurt, the once happy arena had turned into something from a scary dream. The fairgrounds were filled with sadness and fear. The place where the Holiday on Ice show was supposed to happen had turned into a temporary place to hold the bodies. In the aftermath of the disaster, the question on everyone's mind was, what would become of those responsible for this calamity? Two significant investigations took to the forefront, determined to dissect the chain of events that had unfolded that fateful Halloween night. A group of researchers from the Ohio State University Disaster Research Center planned to examine the disaster's response, and a grand jury in Marion County planned to get justice for the victims. The team from Ohio State University was like detectives, going through every detail of what happened. Their work would help us understand the disaster, and it could also teach us how to handle emergencies in the future. They spoke to people from 12 different groups who helped out after the disaster, looking at every decision they made and everything they did that night. At the same time, a grand jury in Marion County was working hard to bring the people involved to court.
With the help of the fire department and everything, they had pinpointed the blast to a propane tank.
They arrested fire officials, managers of the Coliseum, and workers from the gas company. Would the victims get justice? Out of everyone, only one person, a worker from the gas company, was found guilty. But later, the verdict was changed on appeal because there were questions about whether this person was really responsible for what happened. This was hard to accept for the people who wanted justice. While all of this was happening, the victims and survivors were waiting for something good to come out of it. In the end, they were given around $4.6 million in settlements. But could money really make them feel better after such a terrible loss? The sad story of the Indiana State Fairgrounds disaster is something the people of Indianapolis will never forget. It reminds us that everyday things and events can sometimes be dangerous, and that life is delicate. After the disaster, Indianapolis made changes to get ready for emergencies in the future. They improved the way hospitals in the city communicate, which helps them deal with unexpected events like this. Even now, the Coliseum still holds the memories of that sad event. It's not just a building anymore. It's a reminder of how strong the city is, and a way to remember the people who lost their lives that Halloween night in 1963. When we think about what happened, it reminds us to always be careful, because keeping safe is something we all have to do. We hope you learned something new from this story about the Indiana State Fairgrounds disaster. If you want to learn more about events that changed our world, don't forget to join us next time.